Good morning, everybody. As Jeff alluded to, you probably all knew that something big was up when I didn't close the bar with you last night like I usually do. I'm thrilled to be here. We have some provocative content. Nothing really matters more than how our clients experience us. That's true of our clients, and that's true of every one of your clients. So when I looked at the work that we had done over the past couple of years, I said, we have to take this to the next level. We have to have the most meaningful indicator of how each of your organizations performs so that we can together raise the game. That's what really today's about. There's some uncomfortable messages anytime you share client feedback, right? But this is unadulterated client feedback. Let me first tell you that. And second, it really is designed not to make anyone uncomfortable, not to make anybody embarrassed, but to further our progress. And to that extent, we've gone to great lengths to be respectful and still share some valuable insights with you. So, first thing is a cliffhanger alert. You've probably all heard of a spoiler alert, which means when you get too much information. This is the opposite. You're not going to get enough information. You're going to leave this room wanting more. There's going to be a mystery. It's a mystery that's going to be solved in the next couple of days and ultimately announced in about 2 weeks in London. But you will leave this room curious about certain results. This is the big new thing. I want to introduce to you the ISG Star of Excellence Award. As you've heard, we have done this in the past. We have collected client feedback about your performance, and we've tried to report that faithfully to you. And we get in our Kevlar vests and we try to help the industry and individual players in that industry raise their game. This year we went big, right? We have over 4 times the respondents that we've ever had. We have a much more mature instrument, and as a result of that, we feel confident that we should be recognizing those of you that have truly outperformed across a various set of categories that are meaningful to our clients, which I will describe today. We have branded this. That is the Star of Excellence Award. We will announce the program in a press release that will happen just as I'm walking off the stage today. And as you'll hear later, we will announce winners in all categories at our SIC event in London just 2 or 3 weeks ago. Again, because I want to leave here with all my limbs, the purpose of today is to introduce to you how we've done this, what we've discovered, and then before we go public to the world with who exactly is an overperformer, give you a chance to react within your organizations, have a dialogue with us, and so that we're not surprising you by putting this out in the marketplace overnight. Why do we care? Why did we build this award? Frankly, because an ounce of loyalty is worth a pound of cleverness. I didn't plan this with Jean yesterday, but the way she opened her speech, her talk, is exactly why she's here, is exactly why we love her. We ISG, right? She has no problem being a client advocate for us. I wish every single one of my prospects, every single one of my on-the-fence clients could listen to her experience with us, because we've done a great job and we deserve that recognition. We've worked really hard for it, and nobody's ever perfect. All of you have those client advocates as well. The key is you got to move most of your clients, as many of your clients as you possibly can, to that level of advocacy, to that they will go out in public and sing your praises. Because that loyalty is worth far more than 1,000 very smart pursuit teams out on the street trying to win. It's worth more than 3 or 4 years of solid execution. Now, of course, those things may contribute to how you built that advocacy, but at the end of the day, the way you measure it, the way it's going to make a difference in your performance, in your financial performance, in your ability to sustain and acquire new clients, is all about that loyalty. It's all about that client advocacy. So we think this is truly important, and because we're doing this for the industry, I think if we pay attention to this, we can, like I said earlier, really raise the game of the industry. Go from where we are to several step changes better in performance. And of course, ISG is interested in this. A better performing industry is a good thing for us. So let me give you some facts of the study. For the first time ever, we got over 1,000 responses. I challenged my team to get over 1,000. We did. We got to almost 1,100, and that was after disqualifying some suspect responses. I don't believe there's ever been a more complete or robust data set about the technology service provider industry performance than this. 550 different enterprises responded. That's, by the way, 562 individuals if you're keeping count. So how does all this happen? Most of the large enterprises, as you would expect, are doing business with more than one of you. So they had the option to provide feedback on as many as 3 of you, and many did. So again, 1,000 evaluations, 550 different enterprises, 562 different individuals. Over 60 service providers were evaluated. We got feedback. We didn't specifically solicit feedback on any one, but when they gave us the feedback, there were data points on over 60. However, not enough data points to successfully gauge relative performance, which is a big part of what we're trying to do here. So we only considered for our study the 12 of you that got 30 or more responses. So in order to be considered, I know that's a big deflator for some, the 48 of you that might not get as much feedback, but obviously the feedback has to be relevant, it has to be statistically valid, and so therefore we chose a minimum of 30 to get into the really deep analysis on individual service provider performance. 39% of the respondents are ISG clients. I don't know if that surprises you or not. I think that's about right. We had multiple methods of going out and collecting the data. The instrument was still the same. It's not surprising that we would get to a slightly over-proportionate size of our clients. But I think that's good because our clients tend to be the most mature and the largest and the ones that have the biggest deals for you. So I think that's a good representation of what I would call the top end of the market. And we measured across 58 different attributes of performance. That we thought was the way to get the most complete set of feedback for you guys. And we learned something in the process, which I'll share in a moment. Where are these people at, you ask? There are 71% of them in the Americas, 20% in Europe, 9% across Asia Pacific and Australia. Clearly, one of our goals for next year has to be to drive participation up in the non-Americas geographies, and we will. What size are they? The vast majority are what we would call large enterprises, greater than 5,000 to greater than 20,000 employees. You can see the biggest cohort is the biggest companies. 37% of respondents are in that largest cohort. So the question then becomes, do they like you? You're all participants in this industry. By a show of hands, how many think that the industry as a whole, everybody aggregated, gets an A? All right, good. No one in this room is delusional. How many think we got a B? All right, 5 or 6 hands. How many think as an industry we get a C? Looks like the majority. D? 1 D. 2 Ds. An F? That would be pretty sad, right? If as an industry completely we are failing, that would be a terrible thing. When all the math works out, we're a C minus. That's what we get to. So most of you are right, and then that means that you are perceptive of your client environments. This doesn't shock me. It obviously doesn't shock the majority of you. We are in an incredibly tough business. To be good, we have to do 1 million things right every day. But to be bad, we only have to do 1 thing wrong. So the fact that we rise to the level of, hey, you're okay, is, yeah, you could get better, but you're okay. That's actually kind of an accomplishment. When you think of all the opportunities we have to screw up, this is not bad. Now, this is the part where the Kevlar has to come on. Do they like all of you? Well, there's a range. Mediocre news and bad news here. The range goes from F, you're failing the majority of your customers as they report it, to B minus. I'm not going to spend too much time on the F, but the B minus is interesting, right? So those of you that do those 1 million things well consistently over and over again just get to rise to, you're a little better than okay, all right? So that tells us what the opportunity is here, right? We can make step change, and I think it is possible. It's really, really hard. I think it is possible that by internalizing the feedback, the attributes that I'm going to share with you today, and consistently working at them over a 1, 2, 3 year period, we could have an A industry. Well, we could have an industry with A players. I think it would be very difficult because of all the things I've said for us to have an A industry. But we could have A players in this industry that consistently shine for the way the clients experience them. So the distribution of these grades, this won't surprise you now based on what you've seen. We have one of you, of the 12 that qualified, who got a B. The vast majority of service providers are in that C category. One D and one F. Now I decided to show you this curve. Obviously it goes from highest to lowest. And I think this is really interesting, right? So if you start at sort of that messy middle where the vast majority are, you can see that's a really small incremental change to go from, you're all right, to you're decent, you're pretty good. I don't think that it's that difficult for everyone here who's playing at that C level to go to a B level. You can see that the numerical difference there is quite small. Now, there are a couple of you in the room that probably have a lot more work to do, and that's okay. We're prepared to help you with that as well. But you can see that the difference then between sort of, hey, I perform at an acceptable level day in, day out, to you're kind of failing us, is a much, much bigger score difference. All right, I want to share with you some headlines. I don't think, some of these were surprising to me, some of them I just thought were really important. This is something that we've talked about for years and years. We tried every which possible way to correlate price to performance. There is none. You can be perceived as high priced and low performance, as low priced and high performance, and everything in between. So I know we spend a lot of time on pricing, and we should. It's clearly an important factor of getting the deal. But once you're in, there is no premium or penalty for how you price and how that client perceives your price. Collaboration, I started to count a little too late yesterday how many times I used it, Gene used it, other speakers used it, Dave Lewis, and I got to like 38. And that was only over, a half day, and I didn't start counting early enough. So collaboration has sort of rocketed to the top, and when you really go boil it down, your clients want you to be collaborative. Promises kept. This shouldn't be surprising, but again, because we have so many opportunities to fail, it does come up quite a bit. There's a stark difference between what this industry promises and then what it delivers, and clients are telling us that. A bit of a surprise to me, not a disappointment, but a surprise, was how high negotiations and transition rated on the way you're evaluated. For me, that was how I made my living for 15 years, and I loved it, and I actually looked forward to that part of the journey. So I've cared for it. But what we realized through this study is it absolutely sets the tone. It completely sets the tone for what's going to happen next. So you earn a great deal of your satisfaction even before you start executing, which I thought was fascinating. I think everybody pays attention at that moment because they're trying to win, and that's a good focus. But you should also be paying attention because that seems to be a pretty darn good predictor of how your customer is going to behave over the next 3 to 5 years that you're with them, and whether they will actually advocate for you, as Gene did, as I'm sure you have some of your own clients do that. And then bigger equals badder. What do I mean here? The bigger the enterprise, the harder the grader. That's not a surprise, but we thought you should know. Right? The more mature enterprises, the ones with the largest populations, the largest employee bases, are much more likely to be hard on you. So I mentioned earlier the 58 attributes, and we thought we were being super thorough and very exhaustive, and that was certainly our intent. But like so many things that my team does, it turns out we were kind of over-engineering the solution. One of my guys did something called a random forest regression. I didn't know this existed, but I'm going to take his word for it. And discovered that there were 9 attributes that would have predicted the exact same finishing order as the 58. So I said, rather than have you learn 58 things that matter to your client, I'm going to boil it down for you. I'm going to give you the 9. That matter, and these are the only 9, by the way, that will be repeated in the 2019 study. We will add a few based on your feedback and based on what we've learned, but these are the only 9 that matter. Mutual benefits and working together. Shouldn't be a surprise, but actually your clients do care at least a little bit that you're getting some benefit. I think the industry has matured into the vast majority of places. It's not about beating you up. It's about, okay, do well enough for me that you can earn a consistent profit and that you're happy to come to work for me, but I need to be happy with the services you're providing. So no surprise there. Strong spirit of partnership and trust. This came up over and over again. I don't think it's a huge surprise either, right? Clients want to feel that you're in the boat with them, right? If they're sinking, you're going to sink with them, and if they're flying high, they want to fly high with you. And then go back to the promises kept, right? They want to trust that when you say you're going to do something, you're going to get something done, you actually do it. Proactive identification and mitigation of risks. Kind of a big deal, right? You know what you're doing theoretically better than they do. That's why you're in the building, to do it better than they do. So you should be better at identifying what's about to happen, what could happen, all the bad things that could happen, and then how we keep the vast majority of them from happening. Effectiveness in working with other suppliers. This probably wouldn't have shown up a few years ago, but it is absolutely critical right now. There are many of you that share the building with other people that are in this room, right? But most large, mature enterprises are in a multi-provider environment. They want you to play well in the sandbox together. They've been saying this for a couple of years, at least a couple of years, but we now have proof that it truly matters to them in how they perceive your performance. Effectiveness in risk management. So not only are you expected to identify the risks and try to prevent things from going wrong, but when they do go wrong, they want you to be quick, they want you to be responsive, they want you to be alert, and they want all hands on deck to resolve the risk. Responsiveness. This actually, it should be a no-brainer, but given how much it came up, clients are waiting on you a lot. They're waiting on you to provide answers to questions that they think are simple. Now, maybe they're not simple and they're not educated, but then you've got a perception gap there to deal with. They don't like waiting on you. They think you should have immediate answers. They want instant gratification. Fair or not, remember, this is a client experience study. We're not suggesting that this is anybody's opinion other than your own clients. Consistency across account teams. This is where you all took the biggest fall. And it's not an entirely big surprise, right? You only have so many A teams, you use them in the pursuit, you get them in that transition where it matters, where you're setting the tone for the rest of the relationship. But then you got a new pursuit, or you got to fire somewhere else, and you got to move those A players around. Clients notice, they care, and they are absolutely holding it against you. I don't know yet how to tell you to solve that, how you fix that, but it is the #1 issue driving low performance scores. They want consistency of the account teams. By and large, they like the first group you put in there, and they want and expect that group to stick around. Willingness to take ownership of issues. This goes back to finger pointing and saying, well, I couldn't get that functionality up because your data center was down. They don't want any of that. I think we're past that. But there's enough of a hangover that this comes up fairly repeatedly, right? The willingness, there is a belief that some of you, actually a lot of you, are not taking full ownership of issues. And I think that's a relatively easy one to address, because it's almost an attitude, right? It's less about a fixed thing. It's like, oh, okay, we have a problem. I'm going to take personal ownership. And it seems like that rewards you much more than hiding behind the contract and saying, well, it's not really my job. I'll help you out, but I think you should get somebody else to really fix this because I don't know if it was really me. That's not playing particularly well, or it's not playing well at all with clients. And last but not least, and I think this is the coolest and the most important, is technology thought leadership. Now, you would probably say, hey, we have hundreds of technology, thousands of technology thought leaders in our organization. Why would this be surprising in any way? Well, I think it's surprising because 2 to 3 years ago, when you brought an innovative idea, something new to your client, what was the first thing they said? Where have you done it before? So they were lying to you when they said they wanted innovation. They wanted incremental change. They wanted best practices. They might want you to bring something from another client that has worked to them. But if every innovative idea you give them is met by the question, well, where have you done it before? Then it's not innovation. By definition, it's not innovation. That has changed. This is the exciting part. This is why I was so excited when I opened the event yesterday. We're out of the basement. They want your ideas. They are hungry for your ideas. You're not giving, in their view, you're not giving them enough ideas about how to transform their business, which makes us strategic, which makes us relevant, which gives us something sustainable to hang on to that goes well beyond the cost savings that have brought us here. That's really exciting. And the fact that they're noticing it and the fact that they're demanding it in the way they talk about how they experience you means we have that is a sea shift completely of where we were just a few years ago. So again, if you want to be successful with your clients based on our research, these are the things you have to do, the things you have to do well. So even 9 is too much for me. I'm a very simple-minded guy. I'm trying to get things down to very manageable chunks. We created 4 categories, and there is some overlap across those 4 categories, right? So attribute 1 may influence your performance in more than one category. Here they are. Collaboration, no surprise. That's about how we work together. Innovation, I just talked about that. Really, really important, and a change from what it used to be. Execution, you still got to go in every day and do the million things right. Solution design, you have to come with the right solution. And this is where we've embedded a lot of that surprises that we got about how the end of your pursuit and the beginning of your relationship influences the long-term satisfaction. So we created awards for each of these categories. You saw the award in my first slide, and of course an overall award. This is so significant that we feel it's time to recognize those of you that do it really, really well. And we're very excited to be able to do that. But remember the cliffhanger, I want to walk out of here with all my limbs. So the reason you're not going to find out today who is in what place, that's it. I want to be respectful of both the winners, who will probably have some good things to do over the next 3 weeks, and those that didn't perform as well, who will probably want to have some candid discussions with us and only us. So who qualified based on these completed surveys? This is what you will know. The companies listed up here got at least 30, and some got a lot more than 30 responses. We felt that that was a significant enough data set to be able to provide relevant feedback about how you perform relative to others. We have a subset for the carrier side, which I think is also statistically relevant, but it's a little bit behind in production, so I'm not going to talk about it today. We're probably a few weeks from being able to give you that relevant feedback. So no surprise, these are some of the biggest players. There's a couple that surprised me that we couldn't get quite to 30. No one surprised me sort of that made it in that didn't seem like they were a high volume provider. But this is important. I want to share this with you. We're going to do this. This is a thing. You may not like it, but this is a thing for ISG going forward. It's going to happen every year. So we want you to be prepared. And if you're not on this list and you'd like to be on this list, we'll be prepared to help you understand how that's done. So again, we have 5 awards. We have an overall winner, and we have awards in each of the categories. I'm going to tell you how those awards broke out. You're going to see what I believe is some remarkable consistency. So those of you that are doing well seem to be doing well across a broad set of attributes, but I won't tell you exactly which provider landed where. How will you know the consistency? So I've labeled the 5 providers that took home any of the 15 awards, right? That will take home any of the 15 awards. There's 4 categories, 1 overall, 3 spots in each. That's 15. And 5 of you got onto that leaderboard in 1 or more of the categories. So 5 of the 12 are performing at a top 3 level in 1 or more categories. In order for you to identify the consistency, I just didn't want to call them providers A, B, and C, so I gave them a little colored shape so you can follow along on the next few slides. Innovation winners. So you have provider A. Keep in mind that this is only important so you can see the consistency. You have provider A first, C second, B third. Congratulations, you don't know who you are, but this is a really big deal. For collaboration, something that matters a lot to your clients, you see a flipping in the order of the first. B comes first, A comes second, and we have a new provider, provider D, in third place. Now you're beginning to see the remarkable consistency I talked about. Going back to execution, provider A edges out provider B, same order as the last one, and now we have provider C coming back from the innovation category this time in third place. Solution design, This should no longer be a surprise. Provider A is up there, provider B falls off, then you have a new provider, provider G, that does really well at solution design, distinguished themselves in that category, and provider C, who has, as you can see, has also been quite consistently performing across all of our categories. With all of that, it should be no surprise that in 3 weeks we're going to be celebrating, well, we're going to be celebrating all 5 of you, but we're going to be particularly celebrating Provider A as 2018, ISG's 2018 Star of Excellence winner. And again, I'd realize if you think it might be you, you're probably feeling pretty good. And congratulations to you. But we will have a, I'll talk about what's going to happen in a second, but we will be able to recognize you officially in London. And again, that was done out of respect. I could have created, a true event here by laying out the rankings, but we thought the respectful thing to do was to give you a little time to process. So what's next? I forgot to say this is the coolest thing. Only 4 people, including me and my team, know the results, right? I couldn't risk this getting out. That would have some pretty detrimental consequences to everything that I'm trying to protect here. So within the next 24 hours, press release goes out in a few minutes, and I will circulate this list to your closest contact by end of day today. So when you wake up tomorrow, you should be able to know how you placed. I will announce the winners at the SIC in London in a couple of weeks. You may decide that you like some customized cuts of the data, so you know where you ranked across the 58 or the 9, and we're happy to provide those. Then I want us to get ready for the 2019 Star of Excellence, right? You knew we were doing this. I actually talked about it a year ago here, and you know that we had done it in sort of a more limited version in the last couple of years, but as I said, we think that this is an opportunity to collaborate and transform the industry. If we find out what we're doing well, we can do more of it. If we find out what we're not doing well, we can stop doing that and do it better. And then if we find out how we place relative to everyone else in the industry, then we know where we have our work cut out for us. So I hope that this will be a very helpful data set, even for those of you who may not be recognized where you wish you were. And this is a public service announcement that I think you'll appreciate. We understand that we have this proliferation of ways we rate you. And we also understand that we ask you for a lot of information so that we can rate you effectively. We hear you, and we're doing things to change that. We have ISG Provider Lens, which is a more traditional analyst product, very valuable. It gets our experts evaluating your offerings. Most of you participate, and one of the things that we're going to do is, and it's already underway, I expect we'll be able to release it by Q1, is we will have a digital platform where you can enter all your data once. So we don't ask you every time in the study. Now, of course, it's in your best interest to keep it updated, but you won't be asked to repeat the data entry and the information. Once we have a piece of information, we won't ask for it again until you're ready to give it to us. The Star of Excellence Award doesn't figure into that platform because this is obviously another tool, but this is direct client feedback. You don't have anything to do other than go and do your job very, very well day in, day out. And then we have some vertical analysis in terms of which ones of you perform best in which verticals. That's also coming up. So what we want to do is not confuse the market by having 3 different ways, but to bring those together. We're going to make it simpler for you to provide us your data and your capabilities for Provider Lens and the vertical studies. We've made it very simple for your clients to provide the direct client experience feedback. And we hope that this is less taxing on you in the coming years and also increases the quality of our analysis. But most importantly, tomorrow we can begin improving the industry. We will have the most rich set of data to tell us exactly where we need to do to raise the game of our clients' experience. Like I said, this is a little bit uncomfortable, but I love this quote. And that is, deal with the world as it is, not as you would like it to be. We've exposed the world as it is. Very good news for some of you, kind of okay news for the entire industry, and a couple of you are going to have some work cut out for you if client experience is important, and I believe it is. So I know it's a provocative message, as Jeff said when he was introducing me, but I think this is great. We are showing you the world as it is. So now what you do with it is up to you, and hopefully you can deal with it and make it better. you can't tell, I'm super excited about this award. I can't wait to present it to the winners, and I can't wait to share the data that we have accumulated on your behalf so that you can make a step change in your client experiences.